Be awesome listeners, followers, and live members that are catching this real time right now. This is your host, Joshua Peach. I'm here with episode 97, which is a really special episode, as all our special episodes, but this is going to be really cool. First of all, you guys notice Uncle Dave isn't here. Uncle Dave has been an elusive human being, but I did catch him in Albuquerque, New Mexico for a few minutes, and he is going to be back. But he has been up to his eyeballs with work and scheduling conflicts. So I'm going to do this solo, and hopefully he can join in some more of these episodes. So before I welcome our guest, what I want to do is share why he's here and then what the upcoming month is going to look like. My guest today is Joe Bafia, and one of the things that he and I have in common, didn't know him, who he was, didn't know he existed until this week. And the one thing that we have in common is that we are both members of Jesse Itzler's Build Your Life Resume program. And one of the things that I talk about when I do keynotes or I talk to companies or individuals is the same thing, which is if you don't invest in yourself professionally and personally, you can't count on somebody else to do it for you. First and foremost, you have to look in the mirror and say, what do I want to do better? Who do I want to be as a person? And where can I go to find some of that guidance and some of those nuggets of knowledge? And last December, I was searching for my challenge is balance. I think anybody that knows me knows that I'm way out of balance. I work a lot. I don't sleep much. I care about making a difference in the world. I have 2 boys and a fiance and goats and chickens and dogs and cats and rabbits and a 100-year-old grandmother and my mother that lived next door to me. And, balance is tough. And so I found this program, and it's not cheap, but it's worth every penny. I got my return on investment in the first monthly call with Jesse Itzler. He does a one webinar Zoom call live every month that you can sit in on. You can ask questions. He provides a big ass calendar, which was one of the selling points, which is a 5-foot by 3-foot foldable calendar that you can take with you, old school. And the other piece is there's roughly 1,500 or so members, as best I can tell. And what I found was a lot of the members have great stories. I think every member has a story. I think everybody has a story. Many don't know maybe how to tell it, or some don't have a place to tell it. And so what I did 2 weeks ago was I put a post in our private community and said, any member that wants to be on the podcast, I will make time and we will make an episode and we will figure it out. And Joe was the first person to take me up on that offer. And he's got, in 10 minutes, I learned quite a bit about him. I found some commonalities. I found some relational discussion that we could have, and he's going to kick it off. And so for the upcoming month, the one thing that every person that has in common, probably I'm not going to know most of them, and it could be 2 people, could be just Joe. I don't know. I don't know how many other members are going to want to come on, but I'll have all 1,500 members on, because I think that everybody that wants to have a voice and has something to share should have that opportunity. And our podcast is it. So without further ado, my new friend, my podcast guest of the day. This is his first episode. For those of you that are watching and listening live, hey, be easy on him, but ask questions. Feel free to interact. We're going to answer all the questions that might come up. But Joe, welcome, and can't wait to get in here with you and talk about all that you've done and are doing in life.
Absolutely. Thanks, Josh, for giving me the recognition of being the first, right? So I don't come in first for too many things. So it's good to have a first on my resume.
Well, hopefully you're not the last too. We're still looking to get some more members on here. So we want you to be the first with others to follow.
Absolutely. And I'll be the commercial message now to encourage anybody else to jump on it, because I was a little hesitant, when I reached out to you, because I thought, I've never been on a podcast before, but you know what, if he's making this option or offer to us, why not go out there? Maybe somebody can glean something from me, or maybe I can make a connection or a new friend with somebody that listens to this one. So I would encourage as many people to jump on. And you may not think you have an interesting story, but like you said, I think everybody has one. They just have to put it out there. Yeah. So that's, excited to do it.
So let's talk about Joe as the person. Tell us a little bit of the background and who you are, how you've become who you are, and we'll go from there.
Yeah. I am I'm 50 years old, married for 27 years, got 2 boys, 24 and 21. I live in Raleigh, North Carolina. But I guess I'll give the short version. I was born and raised in Chicago, Illinois, of divorced parents. My mother raised me in the inner city with my brother and sister. I am first generation here in the United States. Both my parents immigrated here when they were teenagers from Poland. So actually, the funny kind of side story there is that going into kindergarten, the first language I spoke was Polish because my grandmother really raised me while my mom was at work. So the fun fact was, here I am, American citizen, going into kindergarten. I didn't speak a lick of English, but of course quickly picked it up. And now my Polish is very, very rusty since my grandmother's passed. So I haven't practiced that. But grew up in the inner city of Chicago. Didn't have much mentorship from my parents because they really didn't know how to encourage someone to pursue bigger things, just get a job and try to make a living. But I've always been a type A self-motivated person, and decided that maybe college was something I should try, even though I didn't want to do it, and went to University of Illinois. And then from there, a lot of different life experiences and lessons. I worked for a rental car company for 10 years. I quit that job to spend more time with my family and started a retail hockey store in Iowa. And then from there, that store had to close. The economy was bad. Took an entry-level job in agriculture. And if you remember, I just said I'm from the inner city of Chicago, where we don't have much agriculture. Mm-hmm. And I took a job in the agriculture insurance industry, knowing nothing about it. And now fast forward, I'm celebrating my 12-year anniversary with this company. That's my day job, and doing insuring farmers, working with insurance for farmers who are growing our crops here in the United States. So mm-hmm. I've been doing that for 12 years as my day job, but really kind of picked up a new passion 3 years ago where I've gotten into real estate. Hopefully that is my retirement plan. We are in short-term vacation rentals. We do have some long-term rentals as well that we lease out. But my son and I, my 21-year-old son and I, we operate and self-manage vacation rental properties throughout North Carolina, one in California, some on the beach, some in the mountains. And that's kind of a quick nutshell of kind of where I started to where I am today.
So just out of curiosity and comfort, you specifically said that your mom raised you. Did you not have a relationship with your father when you were growing up? Did you reconcile at some point? Is he still alive? I mean, just some kind of random questions, because I think it's going to tie in with your son and your relationship. Just out of
No, thanks for asking that. My parents got divorced when I was in 6th grade, and then we relocated to live with my grandparents, actually. And at that point, the relationship with my father was severed. An alcoholic, not abusive, but just did his own thing and didn't really care to do much with us. And that was it. We were good to go on our own without him. My brother and sister and my mom, we just kind of started our own life. It's funny you asked, did I reconnect? I did. After high school, he had been through the AA program and had been sober for, I can't remember how many years, but it was a significant amount, maybe 6 or 7 years. And he, tried to reconnect back with us, and I reconnected back with him. He had a construction company. I worked for him actually after high school in the summers. And the funny story with that is that he actually was the best man at my wedding, but we were more friends versus father-son. I mean, we reconnected on a more friend level than I didn't want a dad to come in my life. I was good to go on my own, and reconnected with him, and really kind of kept a decent relationship. He did pass back in 2011, I think. So he's not around anymore either, but, at least up to that point, I can say that, we at least reestablished something where we had made a connection. He got to see his grandkids and had a good relationship with them, and did some of that. But, I'm trying to be that father for my boys that, I didn't have for me, because I'm all about, playing sports and coaching and all that stuff, that I never had an opportunity for somebody to do that with me.
Yeah. Yeah. Did your mom remarry?
Nope. Still alive, still on her own, still in Chicago. She's retired now. So she'll come down here for 4 to 6 week stints at a time, but nope, didn't remarry.
That's awesome. So she was she was mom and dad and did an awesome job with you. No, I asked the story, and you're probably gonna be somewhat amused at why I asked and had no idea. I knew that your father was not. I knew you shared the father. Your father was an alcoholic, but none of the other stuff. My mother left my father right around my first birthday. They separated, and I spent the better part of the next 3 years living at my grandparents' house of Portuguese descent, and I was their interpreter, and was raised by them and my mother. And I actually, I had reached out, had my mother reach out to my biological father on my 19th birthday, which was also my high school graduation, and asked that he be there to try to reconnect. And I went through the exact same thing. Didn't have the positive outcome that you did. I unfortunately got to meet my biological father. Never called him dad. A lot of the same thing, like, it was more of a friendship than a parentship. And unfortunately went our separate ways after realizing that the original separation was probably the right decision to have, but a hard one. But I also think that the psychological piece, because when you were sharing, we'll get into your son and you working together, that's something that is kind of trying to break the mold. And I don't know previous generation stuff for you, but you look at kind of previous generations sometimes and you see a cycle or a pattern. And the key is to break that pattern. So pretty cool.
Did you were you trying to intentionally do things differently than the way you were raised with what you're doing now?
Yes.
I mean, did you
with
consciously think about that?
With reconnecting with my father, or with my life?
Just with your life, yeah.
Yeah. So it's been a struggle for me because I spent the better part of 10 years. You go through this weird stuff where you try to find acceptance even in the people that you probably shouldn't look for acceptance in. And I looked for acceptance in someone that was willing to not have a relationship with their own son that they gave birth to that looks like him and everything else. Like, I should have just been like, hey, if you're going to be that guy, then you probably don't deserve my time. And instead, what I did when I was 19 was I worked my butt off to try to fit in his world and his mold, to the point where he actually had said at one point where I wasn't supposed to hear. I was about 22 years old. He thought I was asleep. And I heard him say to his wife at the time, if he doesn't want to come work for the business, then why is he even bothering with me? So it was like one of those non-emotional, weird, it was just weird stuff. And it wasn't until 2012, 2013 when I said, I'm done. I don't need you in my life. It's not advantageous and it's not positive, that I realized. And I've been saying, I don't want to establish and be that person. I don't want to be someone that just looks at your child as someone to do your heavy work or whatever it is. And I want to be genuine and try to be more emotional. But, my challenge in life is that I've never had an emotional father figure. My mother did remarry, and hence my question to you. My mother did remarry, and she remarried an amazing person, who unfortunately now is in a home with dementia. But the things that he didn't do, he did a lot. The things that he didn't do was he didn't teach me about emotion, saying I love you. He's only said I love you once to me, twice actually. He's only said I love you twice to me. And one of them was when he had significant dementia, and he may or may not have known what the words he was saying. And so it's hard, it's hard for me. And so one of the things that I've always made a point to do at the very least is to tell my boys I love them, because I also have two boys, not up there in the ages that you have. I'm 15 and 4. Figure that one out. But but I've always, I don't go a day or an experience without saying I love you, and making my 15-year-old uncomfortable and giving him a hug.
Oh yeah.
Because I know how much that feels down the road, right? It might not be something he likes now, but at some point when I'm old or dead, he's going to wish that he had that hug, and he'll know that he had them. So, but yeah, I do everything in my power to not replicate anything and it's tough because you have genes, right? You have parts of you,
Mm-hmm.
their DNA. So that's a hard thing. So I'm sure you've thought about addiction, because that's something that can typically, if you've got a parent or a relative that's got addiction issues, you might have addiction issues, and it might not be the same addiction issue that they had. So he might have been an alcoholic. You might get into drugs. You might get into gambling. You might get into any number of other things. Um, you might have an addiction to short-term rental properties, which it sounds like that could be one of those, one of those things. But yeah, we try. I think the important thing is that we try to do things differently. But when we do things differently, we do them better, and figuring that part out. So, but yeah. And thank you for asking, because nobody's ever asked that question. So I'm glad I got it out there.
Yeah, no. And well, those are the things that shape us to where we are today. It's maybe an underlying reason why I got into Build Your Life Resume, and why I'm getting into offshoot things from my day job, and why I spend so much time with my boys. But it's the whole foundation of not having that father figure. And, when he was out of the equation, I think that's when my personality changed to nobody's looking out for me except me.
Right.
I knew my mom was taking care of us and she did an awesome job, but with her working as much as she did, I thought, hey, as a seventh grader, I got to figure things out on my own, because ain't nobody coming here to help.
Right.
And from that point, I've kind of had that, and I thought, well, I'm going to do everything I can in my power to live the best life I can. And
Yeah.
like I said, I think that's maybe partially what led me to some of the Build Your Life Resume stuff.
Yeah. So you're a little bit further ahead, because I think you're on your second year are you in your second year, or is this your first?
Yeah, but there's a good story to that too. The first year I did it, I only did the calendar, meaning I paid the $99 just to get the big calendar, the big ass
Yep.
calendar.
Yep.
I had read Jesse's Living with the Sealed Book, and that's kind of how I got even to know that Jesse even existed. Followed him on Instagram, and I saw one of those Instagram ads about this cool big calendar that you could see at a glance the whole year. And I did that. So I didn't actually join the program. I just got the calendar itself with a couple other books and things like that.
Yep.
And that alone made a huge difference in my life, just that calendar itself. And it's normally posted behind me here, but I actually was traveling last week for work, so I folded it up and took it with me because I did some stuff to it. But then this more current year is my first year actually, doing the whole thing, doing the whole program, and having the access to the other people and the videos. And phenomenal. Like you said, I think, you glean so many things and bounce ideas off people and hear what people are doing. And it's amazing to me how many people that have normal day jobs, normal families, can still do so much. But yet I've got friends who say, how do you have time to do all this? But yet they're the ones who come home from work and turn the TV on and binge watch for 4 or 5 hours and say they got no time. And that doesn't work for me. I'm all about, life accomplishments.
Yeah. Well, it resonated with me. And the first thing I do in every one of my keynotes, at some point in the keynote, I always talk about, because when you talk to people, like you say, everybody's busy. We're all busy, and none of us have time. But the reality is, and I ask this in every audience, and I sometimes give a prize. I say, someone tell me how many hours there are in a week. How many hours are there in a week? 168. If you don't know how many hours you have in a week, you don't know what to work with. And Jesse just extrapolated that to the 365 days and how many hours you have in that year, and planning out your year. Most people don't plan out their day. I'm a person that plans out in a week or weeks. Jesse's a person that plans out his life in a year or years, which is amazing. And for him to be able to do that and adjust. And for those of you that don't know, and how I came to understand and know who Jesse was there was the previous company I was with, our CEO is an ultra marathon runner. He attempted to run across the country. He's run across the state of Georgia, raised a bunch of money for veterans programs. And I didn't even know what an ultra marathon was. Like, when I found out about it, I'm like, what are you, nuts? Like, how many miles are you going to run? Like, the marathon's long enough. Like, I don't drive the length of a marathon most days, and people are running, 100 days. And so the company had this speaker, Joel Runyon, come in. I didn't even know who he was. And he shared this story. This was probably 3-4 years ago. and he shared this story about Hell on a Hill, which Hell on a Hill, Jesse Itzler's got this beautiful property, riverfront property in Connecticut. And every year he invites a group of people to come out and go up and down the hill in his backyard that goes down to the river. And it's intense. And he talked about this Hell on a Hill, and I'm like, who is this Jesse Itzler guy? And then all of a sudden I look, and it's like, he founded Marquis Jet and sold to Warren Buffett. He owns part owner of the Atlanta Hawks. He owned a coconut water company. I think it was Zico. And he went through all these trials and tribulations in life. And then he wrote 2 books, one, Living with a Monk, where he went out and he practiced being a monk for a period of time. And then Living with a Seal, which is, the guy's scary. I mean, you can follow him and try to be like, rah, rah, I can do this. David Goggins he is someone that you're just going, oh my God, what in the world? Like, being a Navy SEAL wasn't enough. You needed to go into the Army Special Forces, and then you had to go into, he's covered every special force, I think, in every branch. And he's an ultra runner. He was wildly overweight, but I think his tagline is "Stay hard." And I have nightmares watching his Instagram videos. So, yep. Yeah, Kathy, I forgot that early on, he was also a breakdancer and rapper, Jesse James. Thank you. Yes, that was his early days, and where he went into debt, and he went through all the trials and tribulations and challenges, and then came back. And Sue McCann, say it loud, say it proud. We're going to continue to do that. Thank you, and thanks for joining us. But yeah, so I saw who he was about 4 years ago. I started following him on Instagram and doing all that stuff, and then I saw this membership come up, and I'm like, man, this might be something in my wheelhouse to try to get involved in. And before we go any further, have you done your Misogi? Do you have a Misogi? What are you doing? I don't have one, so I'm gonna be the first to say I am a way underachiever right now, because I look at some of the things these people are doing, and I go, man, what I'm thinking about doing is not even worthy.
Yeah, I did have one. I say had, in the sense that I attempted to climb Mount Whitney a couple years ago. It's the highest peak in the lower 48, and it's in California. My boys and I tried to do it about 2 years ago, and I couldn't finish it. I got altitude sickness, got a massive headache, and started to come down. And so I said my Misogi was going to be to actually accomplish it. Well, to hike Mount Whitney, it's a raffle-based deal. So you have to put in for a raffle and get your dates picked. And so I was all excited. You pick 12 dates, and, for the most part, they say you're going to at least get one of the 12. Well, I didn't get any of them. Yeah. And so I was kind of disappointed, because I thought that was going to be it. But I thought, well, I can pick something different. Yeah. But through the Build Your Life resume, I had shared a comment that said, bad news. I can't do my Misogi this year. Well, another member, and I can't remember her name. I think it's Kate. She's going to kill me if it's wrong. Yeah. One of the members said, hey, there is another way to get a ticket. They release all unused dates on this day. Go in here at midnight or whatever it was and check it. And so I did that, and I got a date. But then another issue came up, a conflict with work, and I couldn't make the date I got picked. So now I'm back to searching for another Misogi. I am doing Hell on the Hill in Maine in September. And I don't know if we talked about that on the last call, you and I. But
no, we didn't.
My son and I are going to do it. So we didn't do the first one, but we are going to do the one in Maine. So maybe I'll make that mine, because I'm not. Well, Jesse says you're not supposed to say you're not a runner, but I don't like to run. I don't enjoy running. I do it straight for the mental challenge of, can I finish it? Can I accomplish something? But I don't run on a regular basis. I don't have part of a running group or anything like that. So this will be a challenge for me, but I'm excited to do it.
How far up did you make it? Mount Whitney's 14,505 feet, it looks like.
Yeah, I made it about halfway. I think the entire, I don't know if you're on the website there, you're seeing it. Is it like 11 miles or something like that, or 12 miles?
I'm trying to find that.
I made it halfway. So right up until about the point where they start having a lot of zigzag back and forth trails. I tried to push through. I probably, like Goggins says, you think you can't go any further, but you can. And I probably could have. And that's why it haunted me. And that's why I made it my Misogi to say, hey, I want to I want to do it again because I know I can. We got there the day before the hike, so I didn't altitude adjust properly, and I think I just rushed into it too quickly. So this time it was going to be get out there 4 days in advance, do a couple short day hikes, get at that altitude early, and kind of acclimate to it and do a little bit of preparation. But I'll get there.
Yeah. It's amazing that these conversation pieces are tying together. It's like we're long lost brothers and didn't realize it. But in 2018, one of my greatest inspirations and who I call the closest 5 people in my life is Aaron Ralston. And Aaron Ralston is the real life 127 hours. So he was attached to a crevasse by a 1,200-pound rock in Blue John Canyon for 127 hours, and then removed his own arm to survive. Yep. And so in 2018, when I launched Be Awesome, Aaron and I were at the top. I literally made the announcement in Colorado Springs in June of 2018. And on my way home, I was taking a red-eye flight out of Denver. So I drove from Colorado Springs to Denver, and I called Ralston, and he was doing a keynote at the convention center. So I went and met him, and I pretended I was him. I had his name badge, and nobody noticed that I had both arms, which was kind of funny. But we got done, and we went to the top of the Hyatt for the sunset and had a drink of tequila. And they're sitting, and he says, "Man, Peach, you inspire me." And like, when you have somebody that's accomplished all that Aaron's done, never mind removing his own arm, but he's also the only person in existence to climb every 14er solo in the winter. He's also climbed every 14er in the winter, half of the 14ers in the winter, and skied down. And so when someone and countless other accomplishments, never mind the fact that he was on an episode of Tosh.0, and that was one of my friend's claims to fame. He's like, he was on Tosh.0. I'm like, I don't even know what that is, but yeah, I guess so. I mean, it's all over the place, right? But we're looking out into the mountains, and he says, "Pete, you inspire me." And I just puffed my chest out, and I said, "Wow, this is a moment in my life that I never thought I'd have." And he says, "You don't think at all. You just do things." And I was like, okay, this was going in a good direction, that I thought I was going to feel good about myself. And now I question what I should feel like. And we're looking out, and he says, "I'll tell you what, you're overweight," which I am. I weigh 270 plus pounds. I could shed 90 pounds and probably still have some to lose. He goes, "You're out of shape. You're at 0 above sea level. But if I challenge you to climb one of those 14ers, you'll at least do everything that you can and try." And I said, "Okay, are you going to be my guide?" And he says, "Yeah." He says, "You're going to bring the knife?" And he says, "Yep." I said, "I'm in." And so so I go through, what to get, the Camelback water, hydration, the food. I cheated. There's actually altitude pills that you can take that trick your body at sea level, which is absolutely awful for you. Like, I did the research after the fact. I was just looking at ways to cheat and potentially give myself an advantage because time wasn't on my side. And then afterwards I did some research, and I'm like, oh my God, these pills are actually terrible for me. And I probably should have realized that. But I got up the day before. I went to Vail, had an event, and then we went to climb. And 2 weeks beforehand was like ideal climbing. Absolutely no snow on the mountain. It's October. Was going to be able to wear, shorts and hiking sneakers and be comfortable. And the week before, Ralston called me. He's like, "Peach, you need all winter gear. It's going to snow every day all the way up to the hike." And it snowed all the way up to when we started the hike. And that feeling, like, you tell people about altitude sickness, it's the real deal. We started at like 9,500 feet above sea level, and I got to 13.5, I think 13.7. Not quite the distance. It's 7 miles round trip. So, but there's videos on my YouTube channel of like us on the first third of the hike. And I'm like, yeah, hey, this is great. And I'm definitely winded in at 13 and change. I don't have my backpack on. I'm drooling all over myself. I can barely breathe. And I'm literally leaning on my walking poles as if it's holding my life together. And I finally, collapsed. They left me on the side of the mountain because I told them to. It was him and his girlfriend. They continued the climb, and then I did the descent by myself, which was scary. I'm not going to lie, but I'm in that boat. I was just at the doctor's office getting my physical, and I'm like, "Hey, you think I could still pull this off at 47?" He's like, "Yeah, you gotta probably lose a few pounds." But you could probably pull it off. And I'm like, well, probably is good enough. So my key is to find the time this year to actually do it. But if I could have a Muskogee, that's going to be, getting that last 500-600 feet of vertical under my belt and saying, putting my Be Awesome flag in the ground and saying I got there. So cool. And I don't think I need a ticket for mine, so I can just get out to Colorado and start hiking.
Well, maybe you and I need to, outside of a Muskogee, we need to do one together or something. Maybe we need to, join forces and do one. When I was doing mine, it was me and my two boys and a good friend of mine from California. And halfway up when I was doing it, I said the same thing. I said, how you guys feeling? They said, good. I said, finish. You guys are here. Finish this. I'm going down. And my older son said, you are not going down by yourself. I'm going to go down with you. This is not, I don't even want to be here, but I did it because you were kind of telling us to go. So let me walk down with you. So my younger son and my good friend, they made it to the top. My son said his head was going to explode. And when he got to the top, he didn't even want to do the picture at the top where it says, hey, I got here. He was just like, just let an animal or something come and kill me now. I don't even want to walk down.
Yeah.
Just be done.
You don't think about that. You're only halfway there when you get to the top.
Yeah. Yeah. But I'll tell you, when he finished, my son is cut from the same cloth as me, type A, very cocky. Yeah. We would go to the restaurant and be like, just to let you know, I've climbed the highest peak in the lower 48 to the server. Like, this is the rite of passage and a bragging thing. And we're like, okay, we got it. We got it. So now my older son, I said, we have to do it just so he doesn't have this on us.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely. It's funny when I just made the comment about, you're only halfway there. Another person I've had the honor to spend some time with and meet is a teacher by the name of Andrew Brash. And he was the opening keynote for me in Banff, Alberta, a couple of years ago. And the way that I look at opening keynotes, they kind of tee the closing keynote up, right? They're the amp person. They get the crowd amped up and ready to go. And I'm just a regular guy. I mean, my claim to fame is, not making it up a 14er and paddling a giant pumpkin down a river a couple of times. I'm just an ordinary guy. And Andrew gets up and his opening is the first time I climbed Mount Everest. And I'm sitting here going, all right, it's a hell of an opening, because that would indicate that you've done it more than once. And it's because the first time he climbed it, he was about 50 yards from sticking that proverbial flag in the ground, and he came up on a naked man, the top of Mount Everest. And the guy says, I bet you're surprised to see me here. And what had happened was the naked guy was part of an expedition from the previous day that collapsed, and his crew thought he died, and they left him there. And so he spent the night on the mountain, took his clothes off, because when you have hypothermia, that's what you do, and had survived. And so Andrew had a decision to make: climb down the mountain, not reach my life goal, and potentially save this person's life who will most likely die, or finish this and just let him perish. And he chose to try to save the person's life. And he did. That person lived for, I believe, another 10 years. I think he was from Australia, and survived for another 10 years. And I was just sitting there going, you're right there. I mean, I would have done the same thing. I would have probably been delirious. I mean, 29 feet that's a way the heck up there type of thing. But these guys train for it. It's not for the faint of heart. But yeah, no, I'd love to figure out how we could do a hike. When you're up here, there's a hike. I don't know how much time you're going to have, but Mount Washington, while not the altitude, it is a hard climb. I mean, that actually records the worst weather anywhere in history, is Mount Washington in New Hampshire, which is a little bit of a hike. I can't remember where Hell on a Hill is in Maine, but I think it's probably within an hour or two. Well, that's good for you doing Hell on a Hill. It's the equivalent. Is it equivalent of a half marathon or a full marathon?
Half marathon is my understanding. Yeah.
Yeah. With serious grade. And what people don't understand is, when we talk about getting to the top of something and then going down, it's also, in many instances, it's more strenuous on your body going downhill than is uphill.
100%. I'm a big backpacker, so I can do long distances. We'll backpack 20 to 26 miles over a 1 to 2 day span. I cannot stand going downhill, even on small inclines, the pounding on your knees and all that. Man, I would much rather do a slow climb up than down.
Yep. No, 100%. So, well, this is good stuff. I mean, I can't even get over all of the commonalities and the lives. Now you're going to tell me you get goats and guinea hens, and I'll be like, man,
I don't.
Well, before we get into to the book, which I have, Before we get into the book and before we get into kind of this other part of your life, which we talk about retirement and working with your son, what is like farmers like crop insurance, or what is that actually? I didn't even know that existed. So what does that mean, and what do people do or get? I mean, what does it prevent them from? Because there's so many crops that are being caught. I ask this because I can't find sriracha sauce anywhere because pepper crops were destroyed this year in, I think, India or overseas, right?
Yeah. In the simplest form, we sell a policy to a farmer that if they have bad weather and their crops don't grow, we pay them. So no different than if you have an insurance policy on your car and you wreck your car, insurance company gives you money to buy a new car, right? Well, if a farmer doesn't grow corn, he has nothing to sell, then he can't pay off his loans or his equipment or his bills. So the insurance policy will pay him for the corn he didn't grow, right? So that's all it is. And I use corn as an example, of course, because that's probably the most common crop or the largest crop. But I mean, there's hundreds of crops that are insurable across the United States. We only work in the United States. Our company insures in every state. I cover the state of Maine to South Carolina. So I have a very diverse variety of crops that we insure. Everything from potatoes in Maine that are sold to McDonald's. They grow a lot of the potatoes up in northern Maine, down to cotton, tobacco, soybeans, hemp. We're now insuring hemp. We do cranberries in Massachusetts. I had an opportunity to be in a cranberry bog doing a cranberry harvest in Massachusetts, and again, and everything in between. So we essentially will. Our company is the insurer, but we have agents who go out there and deal with the farmers and sell them the actual policy. But it only covers Mother Nature events. So if there is a lack of rainfall or too much rain, hurricane, wind, drought, disease, wildlife damage, any of those things, the policy kicks in, gives them some money, so that way they can farm again. And agriculture is a huge part of what this country does. And the more we can keep in-house here versus importing from other countries, and we do import a lot. Don't get me wrong, we import a lot. We also export a lot as well, but try to have that safety food net here in the United States. We hope to protect some of that. So that's my day job.
Yeah. Well, potatoes in Maine are good for French fries at McDonald's, but they're also good for vodka.
They are.
Little known factoid: there are a number of vodkas out there that are manufactured and made with potatoes out of Maine.
Fun fact: we insure sweet potatoes in North Carolina, and you can make vodka out of sweet potatoes as well.
Wow, I've never had a sweet potato vodka before. Does it taste more like a sweet? Have you?
I've had it. I don't think it tastes much sweeter or anything like that. It's a little bit of a different flavor, but that's a big distillery down here that does that too.
Yeah, no, it's one of the interesting because it may or not be interesting, but in New Brunswick, I don't know if it's a Canadian thing or if it's a provincial thing, but I know in New Brunswick there's 26 or 28 vineyards that produce wine, and the provincial law is you cannot make wine if they're not grapes that are made and grown in New Brunswick. Anybody that knows New Brunswick, Canada, the grape growing season is about 3 minutes. So they make wine with rhubarb and apples and all these different other crops that are hardier and able to grow in New Brunswick. And what's crazy is, and I wish I knew we were going to talk about this, because there's one, Magnetic Hill Vineyards in Moncton, New Brunswick, that they make dessert wines. And I have it's a rhubarb, peach, and something wine that literally tastes like you're sipping apple pie. It's unbelievable. But that's really cool that you guys do that, because we're seeing just with weather. I mean, up here, we're in a drought. I mean, it's awful. I mean, my grass is brown. I'm not using my irrigation system because I'd rather water. I mean, what little help I do by not watering my lawn hopefully helps in other places.
Yeah.
But nothing's growing. Nothing, it's really tough. I mean, we're going to have 100 degrees. It's just crazy weather. So for these poor farmers that are doing their absolute best, and knowing that there's something out there, I never really thought about farmers insurance. That's pretty cool.
Yep. And for a city kid from Chicago who's never, the joke I make is my front yard, and this is not exaggerating, was probably 5 feet deep, 8 feet wide of grass. Like that was the only agriculture I knew. And my grandfather cut it with hand shears. He didn't even have a mower. He just had these like choppers that he would cut the grass with. So for me to be the city kid in agriculture now doing that, it's really eye-opening, and I've loved it. It's given me an opportunity to travel and see some places and things I would have never seen before. So great opportunity.
Yeah, no, it's huge. And that when I made the comment about paddling a giant pumpkin down the river, I did it twice. I did it with my friend of mine, farmer Todd Sandstrom, who works on a farm now, a community farm. And the reason why we did it was, and he got me into this passion and understanding is most kids don't know where food comes from, especially city kids. They just don't. Right. It comes from boxes and bags, right? Yep. So he started this pumpkin growing program on school grounds. And I was just in Wisconsin this week, and I was so energized and amped up. I was in Pewaukee, Wisconsin, which is about 30 minutes from Milwaukee. And they have courtyards, and they're growing produce in the courtyards with raised garden beds. And the kids and the parents and the faculty are in charge of growing all that. And then I left there and I went to Concordia University, which they have the second most energy efficient, built with sustainable and repurposed materials building in the state of Wisconsin. And they're doing aquaponic growing of produce. And I'll put some pictures on the Be Awesome page because it was fascinating. But they have this enormous tank that's just got one little hole in it, and you can see the walleye swimming around, which are a fish. So they're farm raising fish for eating purposes. But while they're growing, this tank collects all of the excrement, the bio waste, goes through a system, and it actually fertilizes the lettuce and everything. It's fascinating. And when you look at the produce that they're growing, like I just wanted to make a salad. It just looked amazing. And it's just really cool to see all of the things that people are doing. Because you're 50, I'm 47. And we talk about our grandparents. I kind of grew up in I guess we could call it poor. My grandmother made most of my clothes, and a lot of times we farm. If we didn't grow it, we got eggs from our chickens, and when they didn't make eggs anymore, they made great soup.
Right.
So, but there was a period of time that was in the 70s and 80s. There was this period of time in the 80s and 90s and even early 2000s where you didn't have to do much. Everything just kind of just showed up at the table, and you didn't have to ask any questions. So it's really great to see more people getting involved in farming. It's great to know that there's a company or companies out there that are doing things like you guys are doing to protect and allow these farmers, because they lose a crop if they don't have something like that. It could be lights out for them.
Oh, for sure.
Yep. Yeah. So let's dig in. You get a couple of years ago. So you're 47. So there's still hope for me. You're 47 3 years ago, and you say, hey, you know what? I read some of your book. So it started out, you bought a house in the mountains for, I think, $140,000 because the original intent was, and if I screw something up, just shut me up and have me start over again. Because I'm on minimal sleep this week. But I think the story goes, you bought a house in the mountains for about $140,000. You're 47. Life is good. You got a good job. You were buying it as a second home for vacation purposes, to fit family time. And you, as many folks that do that, quickly understood was it's not being utilized enough. And hey, maybe there's an opportunity for us to provide vacation, short-term rental space for people to live in there. Am I close?
You nailed it right on the head. Exactly right.
Jesus.
Yeah.
I amaze myself sometimes here, Joe. Yeah. It's amazing. So then you decide to start renting this property, this one property. And now we're talking about you having, you said, 8 properties. So kind of walk through that feeling. Like, I daydream all the time about a vacation property, but the reality is my sole purpose house right here is more of a pain in the neck. Like, I sit here most days and go, man, wouldn't it be nice to live in a condo where people could mow my lawn and plow my snow and do all this stuff? What do I want a headache of a second home to live in or to rent out? So kind of tell me what that was like, the decision that you made, and then that transition, and then kind of get into your your company. I mean, it's a legitimate company with 8 vacation properties.
Yeah. So just like you said, we bought it with the intention of just using it for ourselves. And then once we realized we weren't there all the time, I had just heard, I mean, everybody's heard of Airbnb or Verbo or any of those companies where you can rent property. So I thought, well, what would stop me from doing it? So let's try. And we figured if we could rent it like one weekend a month to make a couple $100 to even just offset the mortgage a little bit, that'd be a win. But we didn't know the first thing about it. Now I'll share that, like, I have of extremely high risk tolerance. Nothing scares me. I'll jump in both feet blind, kind of like you just said with your friend telling you, like, you just seem to do it, right? And I'm the same way, like, not much thought and maybe some regrets afterwards, but I have this full speed ahead type of mentality. So I said, we'll figure it out. Let's find a way to make this listing and then we'll sort it out. Well, then somebody's like, you're 4.5 hours from this house, Joe. Like, it's in the mountains of Western North Carolina and I'm in Raleigh. It's 4.5 hour drive. Like, who's going to clean this place? And I'm like, I guess we got to find somebody to clean it, And so through some networks of the realtor we use and the guy who did some work on the house for us, he found us a person that does some cleanings of other properties. We reached out to her and kind of got her landed for that. And next thing you know, fast forward, we got a rental or two, but then all of a sudden you've got this app on your phone. It tells you when a booking comes in. It's like ringing. It's like booking. We're like, wait a minute, like, why are all these people wanting to book this like cabin in the middle of nowhere? And, we started looking at that and, my son and I started talking. He wasn't kind of in the business with me at the time. He was going to college and doing his own thing, but he said, hey, you should replicate this, like buy another one and keep making money. Cause this is not a break even, like you're profitable doing this deal. And so we said, sure, let's do it. And,
you're building asset wealth.
Absolutely. I mean, even if it does break even, the appreciation on the house and the asset that you're keeping, not to mention you get to use a vacation property almost for free for your family when you need to. I won't go into detail with how we got into all 8, but that's all we did was we bought another one. And now my son, that's his full-time gig. He self-manages all our properties. He works with the housekeepers, sets up the systems. We have a property. We live in Raleigh, North Carolina. We have a property in California. So you don't have to have one in your backyard. You just have to have the right people in place. And so what I had found was, because I didn't know what to do, where do you go? You go to Google, right? You go to Google and say, how do I rent my house? And of course, this, I'll give a plug to this forum. It's called Bigger Pockets. They're a real estate forum for real estate investors. Awesome platform. Almost similar to kind of a build your life resume type of thing of similar type people. And people can post questions, get answers, get advice. And a bunch of people helped me sort things out and figure things out. Well, once I got comfortable, I was finding myself answering other people's questions. And my son and I, we would be on anywhere from 5 to 6 times a week in the evenings after my normal day job of people saying, hey, do you have 30 minutes, 45 minutes to just answer some questions? And we were doing these Zoom calls. And I think my son said, man, we should just write a book. And again, like a runner, I'm not a runner. I'm not a writer. Yeah. I never had a goal to write a book, didn't have any interest, but I thought if it saves me from 5 to 6 calls, the same exact pitch every single time. So I wrote this, I don't know, I got it here in front of me, 90 some page book.
94 pages.
94 page book. Yeah, right there. That is a very easy, basic, the questions we would receive from people who have never done one. Like, how do I pick the market? And so it wasn't to make money. It wasn't to try to sell any kind of book thing. It was just to give us more free time because we're so willing to help other people because people were willing to help us, but we were running out of time. I mean, we couldn't do these 30 to 45 minute segments every evening, 5 days a week when I was working and we were trying to do other stuff. So we've backed off on that and really kind of refer people to the book. We still do partnerships with other people and things like that, but, we love it now. My son finds the next deal and kind of pitches it to me. And then we look to find where our next opportunity lies. And we love doing it.
Yeah. And I don't want you to give away all the secret sauce, although I think you give a lot of it in the book, which encourages people to spend the money and get the book. But was there intention? And so I've thought about this a couple of times with what you're doing. And I was going to ask, and the next part of my question is going to be, you don't do this through VRBO or Airbnb, you're completely marketing and doing everything yourself, or are you on those platforms too?
Sorry, we are on those platforms. Yeah, those platforms get to the masses. When I say self-manage, it means we don't outsource it to a property management company.
Gotcha.
So if you bought a second house yourself, you could list it with me, for example, and say, Joe, I want you to manage it, and I'm going to pay you 20% of the gross rents because I don't want the headache of dealing with guests or, figuring out that they got locked out or the toilet's broken. We self-manage. So we still use Airbnb and VRBO. The majority of our bookings come from those two platforms. Not most, all of our bookings come from those platforms. Although you can create your own website, you really got to market that. Whereas those two platforms already have the customer traffic going there.
Right. And they do a great job. And I get it. I mean, a couple of years ago, so I don't even want to know. I don't even want to guess. I've got well over 1 million miles flown on just American Airlines. And so, I travel around all over the place, and I'm a Hilton Diamond, Platinum, Gold, whatever person for many, many years. And the reality of loyalty programs is there's not a whole lot left. Like, if I saw on average, I could spend 100 nights in hotel rooms across the year. And, I don't get upgraded that often. I still look out at loading docks and other things. And so a couple of years ago, I was like, well, what's the point? And maybe there's some better stuff out there for me to do. So like I went out to San Diego. I was going to be at a conference in San Diego, and I went on VRBO, and I found a boat for rent. Yeah. And so I lived on, the first time I was on a 60-foot, I got to remember the type of boat, but this was a speedboat yacht. Like we were able to take it out. They gave us a captain, and we paid an extra fee for it. But I had a 3-stateroom, 3-bedroom, 3-bathroom, 60-foot yacht in the marina, right next to where the conference was at the Sheraton, and I paid less than the hotel room, and it was just like a cool experience. And then I got to give a shout out to one of my biggest supporters and his wife, Chris and Carrie Martinetti. They are like VRBO, like they find the coolest properties, and I just follow their lead. So when I see that they've gone somewhere, I'm like, I need to figure out, where they're going. They had this cabin they found up in Millinocket, Maine, which is Mount Katahdin. We talk about hiking. Mount Katahdin is in the northern part of the Adirondack Trail, and it's one of the toughest hiking mountains out there. And they found this cabin that's on a peninsula that we went up for a week last year, and we didn't see anybody for a week because we're antisocial when we go on vacation now. We used to be Disney World and everything else and being in the thick of things. And it was before COVID that we got like this, but we like just quiet, peaceful family time. So, so was it purposeful to have a place in California and a place in the mountains and a place on the beach, or was it just like these deals just came up and they seemed too good to be true and you jumped on them?
Yeah, again, with the high risk tolerance, we would look anywhere. So once we knew how to kind of set things up, we were open to anything. The California one came about because my older son moved from North Carolina after graduation to LA. And when we were out there visiting him, I said, since we're out here, let's see if we can find a place that we could rent out, but we can also come and stay when we visit Nicholas. That's my older son. And so we found a little community, mountain community, just north of LA, about an hour and a half. And we bought it and started renting it out there. And then a couple months later, he moves to Brooklyn. So we've got this property that we're not going to use to visit my son anymore, but it's one of our favorite ones. It's in a great community. The beach one, we just said we'd like to diversify. We've got everything typically in the mountains. So, hey, let's try to see if we can find one at the beach. And we did. And this goes to show like my just action attitude. We found the listing on a Friday night. My son and I had this argument banter all evening about this wouldn't work or this would work on this house that we found. We saw it Saturday morning. We offered on a Saturday afternoon, and it was under contract Saturday evening. So within 24 hours of this house that we just kind of randomly found at a beach, we bought it. And it's been doing great. So we're open to whatever. We'd like to stay in areas that we've already got some established housekeeping person that we know, because it's easier to scale your group, but it's not necessary. If a great deal came in New Mexico tomorrow and I've never even visited New Mexico, I'd buy it in a minute.
I was just there last week. I was in Albuquerque.
Yeah. Okay. So that's right.
Yeah. I mean, just out of randomness, it's New Mexico is beautiful and tons of opportunity. And by the way, If you want to get a property to rent, Albuquerque is like Hollywood Part 2. I had no idea, but they literally have Netflix and Paramount. They all have studios down there, and they're shooting more than Breaking Bad, which I didn't know anything about Breaking Bad until a couple months ago. But that's in Albuquerque. But Stranger Things, which is the most popular kids, and I think it's the most downloaded of anything, the high school in Stranger Things, the house in Stranger Things, and the roller rink are all in Albuquerque. But yeah, Blue Skies. I was there last Thursday and Friday. I think there's a series called Blue Sky or Blue Skies. I don't know anything about it, but they had part of the city downtown shut down because they were shooting and filming there. So little inside scoop. You can rent to all the movie producers. They're making all sorts of money, so I'm sure they'll pay top dollar in rent.
We don't discriminate. We like money, and we'll buy anywhere.
Well, you know what's fascinating is the real estate market has been nuts the last 3 years. So the last thing I would think about doing is buying a property, because I would want to wait till everything kind of dies down and readjusts. I mean, my house value here just south of Boston in the last 3 years has doubled. I mean, it literally, in the valuation, according to Zillow and according to my mortgage broker and real estate agents, and what they could sell my house for right now is astonishing. Like, it makes absolutely no sense to me. But you guys built your business during this time. Were you able to just find great deals, or did you just say, you know what, we can still make money and pay a premium here and we're not worried about it?
Yeah, a combination of both. We found a couple of good deals where, through some networking and connections of people we've met in the circles, you get some leads that maybe normal people wouldn't get. Yep. So that's part of it. And we also did it 3 years ago, and 3 years ago was it wasn't the start of it. So, this is pre-COVID, where things were still kind of reasonable. So the first few properties were pretty good. But I'll also say that if I was to buy a house and rent it to you for a 1-year lease, you're going to pay me X amount of dollars a month. It's going to be a more traditional rent payment that is not the same amount of money we command in a short-term vacation rental. People pay a premium for 2 or 3 days, right? So our normal, the one of the houses that we rent would maybe get $2,100 a month to a tenant, but we make maybe close to $5,500 a month, because we're renting it 2 to 3 days at a time to retail vacation renters at a premium price. So we can pay more than you would be willing to pay for a house that you want to make as your forever home or a vacation home, because we're running it as more of a business and we charge more for it. So that's why we're okay paying even a higher price or even retail price. Now it has slowed now because we're being more selective. You don't want to pay double or triple when maybe in a year from now you can pay less, but we're not stopping. My son's already got 2 or 3 that he's looking at that we're going to go see, and we're not stopping. We say the best time to buy is today, not tomorrow. So.
Right. I mean, it could go up. I mean, I talk about waiting for it to go down, but guess what? It's gone up a whole lot. Curious. And then the next question I have on this, because you're just sparking all sorts of brain pops in my head, especially like in the Raleigh area, downtown Raleigh. If you do a search for VRBO, I was going to go to an event a couple months ago down in Raleigh, and they've got a beautiful Sheraton there. They've got, they think, the Marriott with the rooftop restaurant and all that stuff, which is great to go eat and drink. But again, partly COVID, partly just being introverted, I did a VRBO search for downtown Raleigh, and the number of homes that people have that they're renting short term in a city I love Raleigh. It's a beautiful city, and it's come up a lot in the 25 years I've been coming there. But I wouldn't put that as a mecca tourist attraction. They've got some museums and they've got some stuff, but they don't have the Freedom Trail like Boston does and everything else. So it could be a tourist attraction city, but I don't see it as being one. But there's a ton of short-term rental opportunities there, that everything from $60 a night outside of the town city limits to heart of city for $500 or $600. Are you looking at short-term rentals for areas like, my assumption is Raleigh's hustle and bustle for VRBO is because of the convention center, which is beautiful, and they're picking up more events, and the Red Hat Amphitheater for concerts and things. But I would have never thought of a home rental for 2 nights at a time there. Is that something you guys are looking at, or do you have properties like that?
We don't have a property like that, but we've got a handful of friends here in Raleigh that do own some short-term vacation rentals that they do on Airbnb and VRBO. It's to what you just said. You just said that more people are maybe going away from the normal hotel when they can get run of house or a cool condo in an area. In the book, I talk about, finding your market. You don't have to have a vacation market. There are people that have, it's a known city for business travel. So they have a lot of turnover for business people that now want to go and not stay in a crowded hotel. They want their own private space, or they're traveling with their family. And hey, while I'm working, the family can have this run of house, and it's a cool little house. So yeah, what you have to be watchful for is many cities are putting very strict regulations on short-term rentals. Raleigh just lifted their ban where you can get a short-term rental permit, but you got to have a permit, where other cities say wide open. It doesn't matter. You can do whatever you want with your house. But here's the thing. If I live in a neighborhood as my primary home, I don't want a constant revolving door of my neighbors, of these strange people coming in and out, because that's not what I bought. So these communities are putting very strict rules in place that you can't even do short-term rentals. They limit it, say if your rental is not more than 30 days, you can't do it. And so now that's an anti short-term vacation rental investor, and you have to know how to navigate that, because if you bought a good house on a deal and then find out you can't short-term rental it, you got to do your homework before you get into that market.
Yeah. Is this, do you think this is the example of kind of Uber and taxis? Do you see that the tourism and hotel agencies are pushing back and saying, hey, you're compromising our room nights, and if you compromise our room nights, our 15-story hotel might not be in business anymore, and so you need to put all these restrictions in place? Yeah. Interesting. I didn't even think about that. It's funny when you look at these kind of neat, there's those statistics. It's like the largest livery system of vehicles, basically cab system is a company that doesn't own a single vehicle, which is Uber, and then second being Lyft. And the same thing with the largest provider of room night opportunity is not a hotel chain or any single hotel chain. It's VRBO or Airbnb, depending on who it is in that day. But they get this pushback, and they get these challenges thrown in place when it's really leveling the playing field for competition. It's allowing people to be competitive with big corporations and companies, and to be able to be a small business owner with a large business backing, which I think is great, and allows that entrepreneurial spirit, which is what you and your son are doing. So I think that's fantastic. The comment section has been blowing up. Kathy has got a 1965 Airstream. Her Musogi is to get her first rental property. It sounds like it's going to be her 1965 Airstream, and she wants to find a piece of property to put it on. That'd be interesting. Airstreams are cool. It's tough finding.
I've heard a lot of people doing that, renting out those, Airbnb now I think has a button called unique stays, and like Airstreams are on there, or these yurts. You do a yurt. Yeah.
Glamping.
Well, she would, and you know what? If she does it right, you find a piece of property, it's fairly easy, land is still available and you don't need much space. She could be very lucrative with that, because it's very low overhead, low maintenance, and great profit. So I love the idea.
Yeah. And my buddy Chris was listening, and he says, thanks for the shout out, but unfortunately we don't have anything booked this summer. Chris, you know why I know you don't have anything booked this summer? Because we don't have anything booked this summer. So that's how I know this stuff is going on. But he said, this is an amazing podcast today. I can't wait to get my resume going and find my Musogi. Life is crazy, and much like you, I'm out of balance, so I need to work on that. But you are always opening my eyes to other things and perspectives. Keep being awesome. Thanks, Chris, and appreciate you always sitting on here and joining us and giving us your thoughts and ideas, and get to work on a vacation place, because we can't do something until you do. No, and Kathy, I stand corrected. She was sharing about the Airstream. She's bought a condo, and then she's going to take the Airstream across country. So that's something. Rent out your house, and then take off on a camper. There you go. Take the money and run. Just use that for the gas money and pulling that thing around the country. So
that's right.
Well, Joe, I got to tell you, this has been awesome. I think we covered a whole bunch of ground. I think we uncovered a whole bunch of similarities. I'm hoping that more in the Build Your Life resume group. I get to have conversations, and they go like this because I think you set the bar pretty good. And I think just the reality that we just kind of flowed with this and figured out all the things that we have in common, and now we have a climb to look forward to and to figure out next.
Right.
So, how do people get a hold of you if they want to learn more about your strategy and your book and some of the and keep up with you or connect with you?
Yeah, you can email me direct. It's just my first name and my last name. So it's Joe Bafia at gmail.com. No period in between, no underscore, just Joe Bafia at Gmail. My son and I did put together a website, The Bent Group, THEBENT The Bent Group, just kind of our own little property company. And that talks, the link to the book is there. Or anything. All our properties are listed there, so you can see kind of what we own. There's links to book them. So if somebody would like to book one of ours, feel free to jump out there. And that's the best way. If you're part of the Build Your Life Resume community, you of course connect through the app and or see you on Hell on the Hill in Maine up there as well. But that would be the best ways.
Yeah. Well, this was awesome, and thank you for kicking it off with me. And as everybody knows that joins on these podcasts and listens in and follows along, I don't mind paying for my reviews and ratings in some capacity, meaning giving you merchandise, typically a shirt or a coffee mug that says "Be Awesome" on it. But I also like to share with our community of people that are listening and doing things. So here's the deal. Anybody that does a 5-star rating and a review on our podcast, the next 5 people that do it, preferably on Apple Podcasts, but if you do it on any podcast platform, email josh@beawesome.com, and that's JOSH @BEAUSM.com. Tell me you did a rating and review. As soon as it hits the next 5 people, I'm going to personally send out one of Joe's books. So if you took something out of this and you got something great out of it, please give us a 5-star rating and review. We're in the top 2.5% of all podcasts globally. And part of that reason is because of the ratings and reviews. They make a difference. If it's not a 5-star rating and review, send an email to that same email and tell me what I need to do to get there. Because right now we're at 100%, 68 ratings and reviews, all 5 stars on Apple Podcasts. So for those that have done that, I can't thank you enough. For those that have been sticking around and have listened to the 96 episodes, I can't believe the number of downloads and listens we get every week. And we haven't published a podcast. We went almost a year. Then we did 2 with Uncle Dave. And now we're going to get back on more regular. But those diehard followers that have stayed on board, thank you so much. We're going to get more on episodes out regularly. This month, we're going to do the Build Your Life Resume. September, I've got some really good ones coming up for that. And in the meantime, if you can be anything, be awesome. Have a great